Picture this. It's a quiet evening, and you do the thing you've done almost every night for the last 2 years. You open Zillow, and you check your Zestimate. For a while, that little number was a thrill. Up, up, up. Your house was making you money while you slept. But lately, something feels off. The number stopped climbing. Then it started twitching. Down a little, up a little, going nowhere. And the forecast, the one Zillow uses to tell you where prices are headed, just got revised. Again. For what feels like the 10th time. Here's the wild part. In the span of about a year, Zillow's outlook for home prices swung from solid growth to an outright decline, back up to growth, and now, all the way down to basically zero. Flat. Nothing. So today, we're going to answer the question on every homeowner's mind. What on earth just happened to the housing forecast, and what does it actually mean for your money in 2026? I am Jenna, and I spend way too much time obsessing over the predictions that millions of people quietly build their entire financial lives around, and whether those predictions are worth anything at all. Do me one quick favor before we get into it. Hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up so the algorithm shows you the next one. Because understanding how these forecasts really work might just save you from the most expensive mistake a homeowner can make. Now, before we dive into what happened, you need to understand what a Zillow forecast actually is. Because most people read it completely wrong. Until recently, home prices did something they almost never do. They went straight up, fast, for years. Between the pandemic and 2022, prices exploded by double digits in a single year. People got used to it. A forecast that said your home will gain another 8 or 10% started to feel normal. Almost guaranteed. But a forecast isn't a promise. It's a best guess, built on today's data, about a future that nobody can actually see. And when the data underneath it shifts, mortgage rates, buyer demand, the broader economy, the guess shifts too. Zillow updates that guess every single month. So that's the setup. Now let's get into what actually happened to the 2026 forecast, step by step. Number 1. The whiplash. What actually happened to the forecast? Here's why it matters. This was not one clean prediction that missed. It was a full year of constant, dramatic revisions in both directions. Here's the dollar reality. Rewind to early 2025. Zillow expected home prices to rise about 2.5%. Then reality hit. By that spring, they slashed the forecast all the way down to negative 1.7%. An outright decline. Then over the summer, they reversed course and walked it back up. To flat, then +1, then nearly +2% again. And then, heading into 2026, they started cutting all over again. +2%. Then under 1. Then 0.5%. And in the most recent reading, 0.0%. Completely flat. The consequence? Think about what that means. The most data-rich real estate company on the entire planet could not pin down a single year's forecast. They revised it over and over, swinging from growth to decline and back again. So the real question was never, what's the number? It's, why does it keep moving? Number 2. Why the forecast keeps collapsing. Here's why it matters. A forecast is only ever as good as the assumptions sitting underneath it. And in 2026, those assumptions keep breaking. Here's the dollar reality. The single biggest assumption is mortgage rates. Heading into the year, almost everyone expected rates to fall. Instead, they've stayed stubbornly above 6%, held up by inflation that refuses to fully cool. And high rates mean higher monthly payments, which means fewer buyers who can actually afford to buy. Zillow even cut its forecast for home sales from over 3% growth down to barely 0.5%. The consequence? Every single time rates refuse to drop, demand softens, and the forecast gets marked down again. It is not that Zillow is bad at this. It's that the ground keeps moving under everyone's feet, theirs included. But here's where this gets personal. Because the word flat does not mean what most people think it means. Number 3. What a flat market actually does to your money. Here's why it matters. 0% sounds harmless. Neutral. Like nothing much is happening at all. It is not. Here's the dollar reality. If your home's value stays flat while inflation runs around 3%, you are not breaking even. you are quietly losing. Over 5 years of flat prices and normal inflation, your home loses around 14% of its real purchasing power. The number on the Zillow app looks the same, but what it can actually buy you keeps shrinking in the background. The consequence? For sellers, flat means the days of naming your price and starting a bidding war are over. For owners counting on their home as a growing investment, it means the growth just quietly stopped. And for anyone who bought at the peak expecting fast appreciation, flat is a slow, silent disappointment. And that's just the national number, which honestly barely even exists. Number 4. The national forecast is kind of a lie. Here's why it matters. There is no single American housing market. There are hundreds of them, all moving in completely different directions at the same time. Here's the dollar reality. Even as the national number sat down near zero, things were wildly different from city to city. In 2025, home values actually fell in 24 of the 50 largest markets. The Sun Belt, especially Southwest Florida, became the epicenter of price declines, while a handful of other metros just kept climbing. A flat national average can completely hide a 10% drop in one city and a 5% gain in another. The consequence? When you react to a national headline, you might be panicking about a market you don't even live in, or relaxing about one that's actually falling under your feet. The headline number is almost useless for your real decision. Which brings us to the only question that actually matters. Number 5. What to actually do when nobody can predict the market. Here's why it matters. If Zillow, with all of its data and all of its economists, revises its guess 6 times in a single year, then building your plan around any forecast is building your house on sand. Here's the dollar reality. So here's the move. Stop trying to time the market on a prediction. If you are buying, buy because the math genuinely works for your life and your timeline, 5 to 7 years or longer, not because some forecast promised you gains. And if the math doesn't work, rent and invest the difference. $600 a month invested at 8% becomes about $890,000 over 30 years. That is a return you actually control, instead of one you simply pray for. The consequence? The people who get hurt are the ones who treat a forecast like a guarantee, who stretch their budget to the breaking point betting on appreciation that never shows up. The people who win build a plan that works whether the forecast turns out right or dead wrong. And that points to the real lesson hiding underneath all of this noise. Let me zoom out for a second, because this was never really about Zillow or any one year's forecast. Here's the truth almost nobody wants to admit out loud. Nobody can reliably predict the housing market. Not Zillow. Not the big banks. Not the guy at the barbecue with very strong opinions. And the proof is sitting right in front of us. The single most sophisticated forecaster in the entire industry changed its mind 6 times in 12 months. A forecast isn't a map. It's a weather report for a storm that keeps changing direction. The wealthy understand this deep in their bones. They do not bet their future on predictions. They build plans that survive being wrong. They ask one simple question. What happens to me if this forecast is completely backwards? And they make absolutely sure the answer is, I am still going to be fine. That is the whole game. Not predicting the future. Being protected from it, no matter which way it breaks. And here's the math that makes it concrete. Instead of hoping your home gains 2%, which on a typical home is about $8,000 you do not control, you could invest $600 a month into the market. In 30 years, that quietly becomes nearly $900,000. One number depends entirely on a forecast you've just watched fail 6 times. The other depends only on you and on time. The wealthy chase the one they control. The information gap, one more time, is the wealth gap. Let me paint you a picture of what this actually feels like. It feels like seeing a scary housing headline scroll past and just not flinching because your plan never depended on prices going up in the first place. It feels like deleting the nightly habit of checking your Zestimate because your net worth no longer lives or dies by one app's monthly guess. It feels like a coworker stressing out about whether to buy right now or wait for some predicted crash, and you quietly realizing you don't have to guess at all because your decision is built on math, not on mood. It feels like watching forecasts get revised, up, down, sideways, and feeling like a calm spectator at a show, instead of a passenger white-knuckling a roller coaster. It feels like knowing that whatever the market decides to do next year, you already win, because your wealth is growing in places a forecast can't touch. And that feeling, the quiet calm of being protected instead of exposed, is worth far more than ever being right about a single prediction. So, there you have it. What actually happened to Zillow's 2026 forecast and what it really means for you. 1. The forecast whipsawed all year, from growth to decline to flat, revised again and again. 2. It keeps getting cut because mortgage rates stayed high and buyer demand softened. 3. Flat is not neutral. After inflation, a flat home is quietly losing value. 4. There is no national market. The only forecast that matters is your own city. 5. Don't build your future on a prediction. Build it on a plan that wins either way. So here is what I will leave you with today. The next time you see a big, scary, or exciting housing forecast, take a breath and just remember that you watched the best in the entire business miss it 6 times in 1 year. Don't outsource your financial future to a guess. Build the kind of plan that doesn't need the forecast to be right. That is how you stop being at the mercy of the market and start being the one in control. And honestly, that feels a whole lot better than refreshing an app every night. Catch you in the next one.